We are here with a video review of the RBH EP3 earphones, noise isolating earphones. And you can actually see the full review of these little babies on audioholics.com and by clicking the link below. So let's talk about these. These are RBH's latest iteration of their earphones. There have been a couple changes made. The first is they've gone with a ceramic enclosure with a brand new 8mm driver. And so what that means is that the sound is greatly improved. In addition to that, they attack the comfort a little bit by partnering up with a company called Comply. Comply is really well known for these foam, expanding foam ear tips. They're kind of to foam ear tips what Band-Aids are to adhesive bandages or Kleenex to facial tissues, etc., etc. Well, what's great about the Comply ear tips is that you squeeze them down, kind of like the standard yellow earplug. You pop it in your ear, hang on to them for a second as they expand, and what you get is two things. Number one, a really great seal in the ear canal, which anybody that's used in-ear headphones knows you need in order to get great bass response. The other thing that you get is a very comfortable fit. Even when they're tugged on a little bit, when they're in there and they're secure, what you wind up with is this nice, really cushioned fit. You don't get a lot of hard plastic barrels or metal casings punching against the inner ear. So Comply ear tips were a great partnership for RBH, and they do include two of these with the earphones. In addition, RBH has really addressed the durability factor of the earphones, and the way that they've done that is by putting nice plastic strain relief at all of the major points, at the ear tip, at the one button remote control where the Y branches off for the two earphones, down here at the input jack. Everywhere there's nice rubber insulation strain relief. All the parts, the jack, the button on the microphone, all of that is aluminum also. So these things can really take a beating. The cables themselves are wire covered in fabric, but the nice part about this that you don't sometimes see with other fabric headphones is then they've laid a thermoplastic elastomer, I believe is what they're calling it, but they've finished it in plastic. And what that means is that it winds up very tangle free. The fabric doesn't grab on itself and get these things tangled up. And they also reduce cord noise so that as you're running along, and these are rubbing against your clothes, you're walking around, it's rubbing against your clothes, you don't hear a lot of that noise transferred into the earphone through the wire. Speaking of tangle free, the way that I measure how likely a set of earphones is to be tangled is by taking them and putting them in what I call the Tangletron 1000, aka my backpack. So I pop the earphones in there, zip it up, give it a shake for about 10 seconds, and then I pull them out. And I measure the average time it takes me to get everything untangled for the earphones. And these I was able to get done on average in about 13 seconds, which compared to some of the other phones that I've had that could take anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute is pretty good. So even after these get wadded up and tossed in a backpack, you're not gonna have to spend all day trying to get everything untangled because of that nice cable. In terms of accessories, as I mentioned, the RBHs do come with a spare set of Comply ear tips so that if the set that comes pre-installed starts to break down, you've got a backup, although you can order them straight from the Comply folks as well if you do want some extras. And then they provide your standard, albeit slightly better constructed than usual, silicone tips as well. And so you got 3 different sizes of those. If the foam tips aren't to your liking, and for me, I love foam tips, but if you prefer the silicone, you do have those. There's a little clip that attaches the cable to your shirt to keep things from moving around too much, and then they do include a very basic little accessory pouch. One thing that I found is that the pouch was a little on the small side for me, and I know you don't want a huge case for your headphones, but even after I wrap them up pretty well, it didn't quite always want to fit in the envelope, the little pouch, all the way. They tended to stick out. And actually that was just fine. I would rather they spent time and engineering on the headphones themselves, the earphones themselves, rather than the case that they go into. There's plenty of aftermarket cases. And really, if the cords are sticking out a little bit, it's not a big deal. At least the earphones themselves are protected. So that takes us to the listening portion and the question of how do the RBH EP3s sound? Well, when I first started using them, the first thing that I noticed was the quality and quantity of low frequency response of these earphones. In fact, what I usually find with the earphones is either you get a lot of bass, but it's not very clear, there's a little bit of distortion, or it comes off muddy, or it's very clean and clear, but it's a little bit recessed compared to the other frequencies. With the RBHs, that wasn't the case. In fact, if anything, the bass was a little bit pronounced compared to the other frequencies, but it was still clean and clear and distortion-free and very accurate. And I think the thing that struck me most is now all of a sudden I was out there moving around, using my system on the go and getting the same quality of sound, or near the same quality of sound, that I get in my big system at home with that SVS subwoofer right over there. So I had the same great sound that I was getting at home, but now I had it when I was on the bus, I had it when I was on the bike, I had it when I was at work moving around. And so that level of portability of great sound is, to me, what's really the most exciting thing about earphones. The mid frequencies, I would say, were the most laid back of the three frequency ranges. They were still there, clean and present, and everything was clear, from vocals to spoken dialogue in movies. And the high frequencies, I'd say, were a little bit more pronounced, which gave things a very energetic presentation. You know, you got a little bit of a rise in your low frequencies, a little bit of rise in high frequencies, and as a result, there is a very exciting presentation, a little bit of a hyped presentation to the earphones. One of the things that I should mention, there's actually the Comply ear tips come shipped where they're snapped into the barrel just enough to keep them set in there. And you can listen to them that way, and that's just fine. We'll put up a graph here that shows the difference between the way they come shipped, though, and if you push the earphones all the way in, it extends low frequencies a little bit and shifts a little bit of a high frequency peak. Now, when you look at this graph, things to keep in mind is that earphones don't measure the same way as speakers do. With speakers, you often want a nice straight line, the same level of frequency response from low to high frequency. With earphones, because the sound is not going out there bouncing around the room, but is rather being injected straight into the ear without interacting with your outer ear at all, we hear frequencies when they're put into our ear directly through earphones more differently than we do with speakers sitting in a room. So this graph will show you the change in the low frequency response, but if you're looking at this as a clue of saying, well, how neutral does it sound to other sets of speakers or other sets of headphones or earphones, it'll be difficult to say because everybody's hearing is a little bit different. The shape of the ear is a little bit different and affected in a different way when that sound goes directly into the ear. Which takes us to the question of value. So the RBH EP3s are priced at $179, which puts them pretty squarely in the mid-range as far as the cost of earphones go. For some people who have spent their entire lives buying earphones that cost about as much as a Happy Meal, picking up your set of headphones from the checkout line at the grocery store, that's going to seem like a fairly steep price. But compared to many other earphones, these present a great value, especially because RBH is running an introductory special. Right now, these are only $99. And so if I were telling you about a set of bookshelf speakers, a pair of bookshelf speakers that provided the same quality of sound as these earphones, and they were $99 a pair, you would be running over yourself right now to go out and grab a pair of those speakers. And I'm telling you, you should be running over yourself to go grab these at $99. Because when you start hearing that same great quality sound that you're used to hearing in your home theater, with you wherever you go, it becomes really life-changing. I find myself pulling these out and listening to these at work more and more often than I ever have before. I find myself rediscovering music on the go, and I lead a pretty busy lifestyle. The days that I can sit down and listen to music get fewer and fewer, unfortunately. But now, that same enjoyment that I'm getting in my home theater, I'm starting to get more hours of the day on the go with these earphones. So I've been really happy getting a set of quality earphones, and I think that for me, the RBH EP3s really fit that bill. Clean, clear sound, enough bass to satisfy the bass heads, plenty of detail in the treble frequency ranges. The mids are nice and clear as well, adequate for listening to vocal heavy music, definitely adequate for listening to dynamic movies without losing the dialogue in the mix. These are real great go-around earphones. They're comfortable and they isolate a lot of that outside noise, which allows you to listen at a slightly lower volume and protect your ears as well. So once again, our full review is up at Audioholics.com. I really encourage you to check out more details about the RBH EP3s. Remember the introductory pricing. If you're thinking about grabbing these, grab some in a hurry, save yourself quite a bit of money. And do stay tuned for other video reviews as well as articles on Audioholics.com, and subscribe right here on your YouTube channel. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you very soon.